That's my brother from another mother, and you're messing with my cousin, and I'm pregnant.
Candace Owens just went off on Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds for dragging her into their absurd lawsuit, completely unprovoked.
Well, joke's on him, because I have now been name-checked in this lawsuit.
Blake tried to flip the script, accusing Candace of exposing secrets she wanted buried. But Candace? She stays 10 steps ahead. She didn't just call out the nonsense. She unearthed receipts that have this Hollywood couple spiraling. So here's the deal.
Read through this. We showed the public that's what you're doing.
On February 26th, Candace woke up, probably expecting another day of exposing hypocrisy, only to find her name smack in the middle of Blake and Ryan's court filings. And for what? Simply speaking the truth about their ridiculous legal battle.
Under your skin. I'm so excited. I'm under their skin. Blake and Ryan are watching.
She had zero involvement in the lawsuit itself, but that didn't stop these two from name-dropping her like she was part of their drama. Did Candace panic? Not a chance. Instead, she roasted Blake, calling it the best Christmas gift ever, and even joking that she might as well retire now.
A little bit of dirt thrown on me here because I'm the only other person that gets mentioned, and I want to be clear.
Because, let's be real, when an A-list actress and her obnoxiously self-righteous husband take time out of their multi-million-dollar case to mention you, it means you hit a nerve. Hard. And let's set the record straight. Candace Owens isn't just some random internet personality. She's a force to be reckoned with, and clearly, Hollywood can't stand it. Candace Owens built her entire career by calling out hypocrisy, and now she's smack in the middle of yet another Hollywood meltdown because she told the truth.
Just read through this. We showed the public that's what you're doing. So I don't understand why I got name-checked here. And then just to say, predictably, the media outlets picked up the same narrative. They're like, they got me out here looking like Regina George when she cuts her shirt.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds weren't ready for someone to obliterate their carefully crafted victim act. So instead of addressing the real issue, they went for a full-on smear campaign. But here's the problem. Candace isn't the type to roll over and play nice. She doesn't just clap back. She goes for the jugular. And now, she's got front-row seats to their unraveling. And the wildest part? Blake's PR stunt didn't just flop, it backfired in spectacular fashion. She wanted to paint Baldoni as the villain, but instead, the internet turned on her. People saw through the performance, and suddenly, it was crystal clear. This lawsuit wasn't about justice, it was about power.
Not sure what argument they're making, because I'm not sure what argument they're ever making, because their entire lawsuit is just filled with contradictions. But they use my tweet and they say, late last night, which is what I said, I tweeted this, late last night while we all slept, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds filed a protective order.
The second things started slipping out of her control, Blake pulled the ultimate desperation move, begging the court for a protective order to keep the evidence under wraps. Then comes March 10th. Blake's legal team scrambled to file a protective order requesting that certain documents and key details be kept confidential.
No, I'm just telling the truth. And I don't understand what your problem is with me other than the fact that I am under your skin. I'm so excited. I'm under their skin.
Now, sure, that's normal in high-profile cases. No one wants their bank statements or random personal details leaked. But Blake, she didn't just request a standard order. She took it up a notch. She pushed for a modified version with a highly suspicious AEO clause. Translation? Even Baldoni himself wouldn't be able to see some of the evidence against him. That's not just shady, that's downright sinister. Let that sink in.
Lehman of New York instructed both of the parties of the suit to submit a proposed protective order. I think the deadline he gave them was March 10th for a proposed protective order.
The defendant in a $400 million lawsuit wasn't even allowed to see the evidence being used against him. And what was Blake's excuse? She claimed it was to protect third parties, specifically Taylor Swift, because exposing private messages could cause unfair harm. But let's get real. Taylor Swift isn't even involved in this case. Blake name-dropped a celebrity just to justify hiding evidence. And let's not forget, this is the same woman who had zero problem leaking confidential texts to the New York Times. Now, suddenly, she's concerned about privacy? The hypocrisy is off the charts. Baldoni's legal team wasn't having it. They immediately called out Blake's real motive. It wasn't about protecting innocent people. It was about controlling the narrative.
This team filed for a slightly modified type of protection order that would include increased protections to third parties. Now, we covered this filing. I told you that essentially what was buried in it was what I would describe as the Taylor Swift law.
She wanted full power over what information reached the public, making sure only her version of the story got airtime. Anything that could expose her lies? Buried. Silenced. This wasn't about shielding third parties. It was about shielding Blake Lively. And this is exactly why Candace Owens got dragged into the chaos. She saw through the fake victim act, called out the deception, and that infuriated Blake and Ryan.
Saying we only want this to be shared between the attorneys, not even with the parties to the suit. So that means, Brian Friedman can see it, their lawyers can see it, but we're talking like not even Melissa Nathan or Justin Baldoni could see it because it might be very damaging to third parties.
Instead of ignoring her, they panicked and tried to smear her, framing her as some media puppet for Baldoni. But Candace doesn't play their game. She exposes it. Blake and Ryan were so pressed about Candace Owens exposing the truth that they literally quoted one of her late-night tweets in their court filing, where she perfectly summarized the entire situation. That's when it became crystal clear. They weren't just annoyed. They were desperate. They knew Candace was putting the truth on blast, and they couldn't handle it. So what did Blake's legal team do? They tried to lump her in with Perez Hilton, claiming she was part of some orchestrated attack. A whole conspiracy theory just to justify their meltdown.
If Brian Friedman subpoenas Taylor Swift's text messages, wink, wink, that's what I want to see, and it reveals that actually Taylor Swift was LOLing with Blake Lively about being a dragon. She was like, yeah, I'm a dragon. Rawr. And she was like plotting the takeover of the movie because she's bored and it's Tuesday and Joe Alwyn isn't responding to her text messages anymore and she's already finished her album.
But Candace? She shut it down instantly. She laughed in their faces, calling out their pathetic smear attempt and making it very clear she has no connection to Baldoni. The idea that she's part of some coordinated effort? Ridiculous. Blake Lively thought she could control the media, manipulate public perception, and walk away as Hollywood's perfect victim. Instead, she played herself.
Distinguish between the two, what a standard court protective order is and what Blake Lively's team is asking for, which is an attorney's eyes only designation.
She had no problem leaking private texts when it meant destroying Baldoni's reputation, but the moment her own words were at risk, she ran to the court, begging for protection. She claimed to be traumatized while her own husband was out cracking jokes about the lawsuit. The contradictions were too obvious, and when people like Candace started calling them out, Blake panicked. Instead of owning up, she tried shutting them down with legal intimidation, and Candace's so-called crime, telling the truth.
The judge actually grants that kind of a protection order. The attorneys would become the judge of what exactly could be designated AEO. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
That's it. She didn't fake evidence. She didn't leak private messages to manipulate the media. She didn't demand special treatment in court. All she did was call out the hypocrisy, and that sent Hollywood into a full-blown meltdown.
But they use my tweet and they say, late last night, which was what I said, I tweeted this, late last night while we all slept, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds filed a protective order. The guilty as sin couple is asking a judge to protect from the public some confidential documents and names that will be gathered in the discovery process.
All Candace Owens did was drop facts, and that alone was enough to send Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds into a full-blown meltdown. Candace did what she always does, called out hypocrisy, exposed the lies, and obliterated anyone trying to shut her up. She took to her podcast and ripped this ridiculous lawsuit apart, showing exactly how Blake and Ryan were twisting reality to fit their carefully crafted victim narrative. And that one tweet, it sent Blake's entire legal team into a full-on panic. Not because they were busy handling the lawsuit itself, not because they were scrambling to deal with actual evidence.
After they put my tweet, they write, predictably, the media outlets picked up the same narrative. Okay, yeah, but that's what you did. Like, what am I guilty of here?
Number. Their biggest concern was that Candace Owens had them figured out. And instead of doing what any rational person would, ignoring her, they did the exact opposite. They actually quoted her tweet in their official court filings. Think about that for a second. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, two Hollywood millionaires with endless PR teams and elite lawyers, were so pressed over a single Candace Owens tweet that they felt the need to bring it up in court. And their big argument?
She was a massive bitch.
That Candace was spreading misleading accusations. Seriously? That's the best they had? Yes, you heard that right. The same Blake Lively who had zero hesitation about leaking private texts to the media is now accusing Candace Owens of spreading misinformation. You can't make this up. And if that wasn't enough, her legal team threw in some laughable conspiracy theory about how Candace and Perez Hilton were supposedly part of a coordinated media attack against her and Ryan. Because, of course, when Blake's victim act starts falling apart, the only logical explanation is that there's some massive Hollywood conspiracy working against her. It couldn't possibly be that people are just calling her out for her nonsense, right?
Guilty of here. Leading the pack of people, because we're psychotic and we're checking your filings every day. And we said, oh, look, yeah, she's filing for more protection to protect, she thinks it's confidential documents. We just read through this. We showed the public that's what you're doing.
Candace's response was exactly what you'd expect. She laughed in their faces. She shut it down instantly, denying any connection to Baldoni or his lawyer and mocking the absurd idea that she was some secret puppet in this case. In fact, she roasted the claim so hard that she even joked about it, sarcastically calling Baldoni her long-lost cousin just to emphasize how completely ridiculous the accusation was. But she didn't stop there. Instead of getting defensive, she embraced the drama. She celebrated her new status in this Hollywood mess, jokingly announcing, "I'm in the lawsuit now, my name is in legal documents. Mom, I made it."
Want the Taylor Swift text messages. I deserve the Taylor Swift text messages. Okay, I've worked incredibly hard for the Taylor Swift text messages. Years, okay? I mean, not years, but everyone can see that I have made a real effort. And now that you have name checked me and I'm under your skin, I'm going to be there for a very long time. I'm not gonna let go. I'm like a pit bull, okay? I'm on to
because right now, he's looking like the biggest hypocrite in Hollywood. Let's talk about Ryan's role in this train wreck. First, he played the devoted husband, standing by Blake as she sobbed about how Baldoni had ruined her life. But then, when it was convenient, he mocked the entire lawsuit on SNL, treating it like some big joke. So which is it, Ryan? Is this a serious case that requires privacy and protection, like your lawyers claim? Or is it just another punchline for your comedy routine? Because right now, you're looking real suspicious. Because you can't have it both ways, Ryan. Instead of quietly standing by his wife, he took the biggest stage possible, SNL's 50th anniversary special, to mock the very lawsuit Blake is supposedly so traumatized over.
Pitbull, okay? I'm on to you. I see what's happening. And you're just throwing me in here for trying to make people think that I'm somehow connected to Brian Freeman when I'm not. But I will be in the future, okay? That's my brother from another mother. And you're messing with my cousin. And I'm pregnant. Okay?
So let's get this straight. Your wife is out here claiming to be devastated, begging the court for special protections, and your response is to turn it into a joke on national television? Make it make sense, Ryan. The internet didn't let this slide. People instantly called him out for being a massive hypocrite, because you can't sit there, play the concerned husband, act like your wife is suffering, and then crack jokes about it when it benefits your image. But hey, that's Hollywood for you. Everything is a performance. And fans, they weren't having it. Social media exploded with people calling him fake Lively, because at this point, he's just as much of an actor off screen as he is on it. Others started roasting him with a new nickname, Crying Ryan. Because let's be real, this man loves to play the victim when it fits his narrative. But when there's a chance to score PR points, suddenly it's all fun and games. And let's not forget, The entire argument behind Blake and Ryan's legal battle is that this lawsuit is so serious, so traumatizing, and so damaging that they need special legal protections to keep everything under wraps. But apparently, it's not that serious if Ryan is out here making jokes about it on TV. People started seeing right through him. The reality? Ryan Reynolds isn't interested in justice. He's interested in controlling the story. If Ryan and Blake truly believed they were in the right, they wouldn't be so desperate to silence critics like Candace Owens. They wouldn't be scrambling to shut down anyone who questions their narrative. But that's the thing. They don't want the truth. They just want to play the Hollywood victim while expecting everyone else to blindly accept whatever version of reality they decide to serve up. And Candace? She wasn't about to let that slide. That's why she obliterated Hollywood's fake feminism in one of the most savage roasting sessions we've ever seen. She dismantled Blake's entire PR strategy in a single, brutal sentence. You cry victim in the media, but control what gets leaked. You can't have it both ways. And that's the real problem. Blake and Ryan don't actually want transparency. They don't want real accountability. What they want is full control. Control over what gets released, which quotes make headlines, and who gets to speak. That's exactly why they tried to silence Baldoni. That's exactly why they dragged Candace Owens into their mess. And that's exactly why they started panicking the moment people began asking real questions. Candace didn't just call out the hypocrisy. She exposed the entire game. She went after Hollywood feminists, the ones who only care about women's rights when it's convenient for them. She pointed out how Blake is using feminism as a shield, playing the fragile, helpless victim while weaponizing the legal system to destroy someone's career. This is what fake feminism looks like. This was never about justice. It was never about feminism or protecting women. This was about power, about control, about making sure that the rich and famous always get to tell their side of the story, while everyone else is forced to stay silent. But Candace? She exposed it all. She tore apart every contradiction, every manipulation, and every blatant lie in this case. She pointed out how Blake's legal arguments directly contradict her public statements. She highlighted how Blake's own PR team has been caught leaking private information, while at the same time crying about needing privacy. And most importantly, she showed the world what's really happening. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are not victims. This isn't about women's rights. This isn't about feminism. This is about two Hollywood elites who are terrified of the truth getting out. And instead of owning up, they're using every trick in the book to silence anyone who dares to call them out. The truth? Candace Owens didn't attack Blake Lively. She exposed her. And the only reason Blake is spiraling right now is because she's been caught. She thought she could control the media. She thought she could manipulate public perception. She thought she could drag Candace into this mess and intimidate her into silence. But here's the thing. Candace Owens doesn't back down, ever. And now that she's officially in this fight, she's not going anywhere. Social media absolutely torched Blake and Ryan, and they deserved every bit of it. Within hours, hashtags like Fake Lively and Crying Ryan were trending, because people finally saw through the act. And let's be real, those names are spot on. Blake has been fully exposed as just another Hollywood manipulator, twisting the narrative to make herself look like a victim, all while hiding behind carefully crafted legal strategies. And Ryan? He's just there for damage control, playing the devoted husband in public, but then mocking the entire situation on national television. Fans weren't buying it. They immediately started calling Blake out for using this lawsuit as nothing more than a career move. And honestly, the timing speaks for itself. Before this legal circus, she was just another actress struggling to stay relevant. But suddenly, she reinvents herself, positioning herself as a victim, making dramatic claims about being silenced. And just like that, she's back in the headlines. Too convenient, right? Except there was one big problem. The legal documents started exposing all her inconsistencies. Baldoni's case? It kept getting stronger. Blake's argument? It was falling apart. The same woman who demanded the world believe her story was now fighting tooth and nail to keep key information from the public. Why? Because the truth isn't on her side. And the media, they turned on her fast. At first, of course, the usual Hollywood mouthpieces were all in, pushing the Blake Lively, the brave survivor narrative. But then, real journalists started digging. They looked at the court filings. They analyzed the PR leaks. They caught the blatant contradictions. And even they couldn't ignore the mess. It didn't take long for the headlines to shift, from sympathy to skepticism. Journalists started asking real questions. If Blake truly wanted transparency, why was she begging the court for a protective order? If Blake was so traumatized, if this was really about justice, then why did she leak private texts to the media before the case even started? Legal experts took one look at this mess and, no surprise here, they weren't buying it. The more they analyzed the filings, the more obvious it became. Blake's case wasn't just weak, it was falling apart completely. Lawyers were publicly stating that her contradictory statements were making it impossible to take her claims seriously. And when the narrative started crumbling, her legal team had only one move left: bury the evidence and hope nobody notices. Which brings us to March 10th, the day everyone is waiting for. That's when the judge decides whether Blake gets to keep everything hidden or if the truth finally comes out. And let's be honest, if she was telling the truth, wouldn't she want everything out in the open? But no, she's terrified of that happening. Her entire strategy depends on controlling what information gets released. And if the judge doesn't side with her, she's in deep trouble. And then, of course, there's the Taylor Swift factor. Because apparently, Blake couldn't just ruin her own reputation, she had to drag Taylor's name into this mess too. Her legal team made the bizarre argument that third parties like Taylor Swift could be unfairly harmed if certain documents became public. Now, let's stop and think for a second. Taylor Swift isn't even involved in this lawsuit, so why is Blake so desperate to keep her messages hidden? What's in those texts that she's so terrified of being exposed? If Baldoni's legal team subpoenas those messages, it could blow the lid off how deep this PR manipulation really goes. Maybe we'd finally see just how much of this case was scripted from the start. And while all this chaos unfolds, Candace Owens is just sitting back, watching the Hollywood circus implode. And she's not letting go. If Blake thought dragging Candace into this lawsuit would scare her into silence, she seriously underestimated who she was dealing with. Candace has already made it clear she's invested in exposing Hollywood's corruption. And this case, it's shaping up to be the perfect example of how the elite weaponize the legal system to protect themselves. Blake and Ryan thought they could control the narrative, but instead, they made things 10 times worse. Instead of burying the truth, they shined a spotlight on it. Instead of silencing Candace, they gave her even more reasons to keep talking. Instead of gaining sympathy, they've become the laughingstock of social media. At this point, Candace Owens is officially part of the lawsuit narrative, and she's loving every second of it. Blake and Ryan, they're squirming, desperately trying to figure out how to spin this disaster. But here's the problem. There's no way out. They started this mess, and now they're stuck in it. Hollywood elites love playing the victim while silencing their critics. But this time, it's not working. Blake thought she could drag Candace into this and shut her up, but all she did was give her the perfect opportunity to expose everything. Candace Owens has already made it clear. She's not stopping anytime soon. And at this point, Blake has no clue what's coming for her. Because now that the truth is out, there's no silencing Candace Owens. Let's be real. Blake and Ryan aren't mad because people are lying about them. They're mad because people are telling the truth. And Candace, she's not going anywhere. Now that she's officially in the middle of this Hollywood disaster, she's locked in, ready to expose every bit of hypocrisy that comes her way. Blake thought she could play the game, but she just made the biggest mistake of her career. She picked a fight with the wrong person. Blake and Ryan thought they could control the narrative, but Candace just blew the whole thing wide open. And this is far from over. This Hollywood meltdown is just getting started. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a single update, because we're just scratching the surface of this celebrity disaster. See you on the next one.